Back in 2012, there was this one movie, and it didn't just break box office records. It was more like a thunderclap that just completely shattered the old rules of Hollywood and wrote a brand new playbook for the entire industry. So let's get into how it all happened.
I mean, if you were in a movie theater that summer, you remember this moment. That iconic shot, it was the payoff, right? The big promise they made 4 years before, and it was just pure cinematic electricity. You could actually feel it in the room. People were cheering, screaming, like it was the Super Bowl. And that one shot, that crazy spinning shot, it wasn't just cool, it was the proof. It was the moment that this massive, insane Hollywood gamble finally paid off.
And yeah, that feeling in the theater, it translated directly into this absolutely staggering number. We're talking more than $1.5 billion worldwide. So the success of the Avengers, it wasn't just big, it was a seismic event. It sent shockwaves through every single studio in town and basically announced, hey, this new way of making movies, it's not just a thing, it's the new gold standard.
But here's the thing, this didn't happen by accident. Not at all. This huge success was actually the final, breathtaking piece of a very deliberate, very careful strategy. A strategy that, at the time, everyone thought was incredibly risky.
And what's really amazing when you look at it is the sheer patience. This was Kevin Feige's master plan for Marvel Studios. Think about it. Instead of just throwing a bunch of heroes at us and hoping we care, they spent 4 years and 5 entire movies making us fall in love with the individuals first. We got to know Tony Stark. We got to know Thor and Captain America in their own worlds. So when they finally came together, it felt less like a random crossover and more like a reunion of old friends. Friends we were already deeply, deeply invested in. And let's be real, that was the big challenge, right? It was like this incredible high-wire act, juggling all these different heroes, all these different storylines. But they stuck the landing. And by doing that, Marvel didn't just make a hit movie. Nope. They created an entirely new playbook for how to build a franchise. A playbook that pretty much every other studio would try to copy, and, well, most of them would fail, miserably. And that, right there, brings us to the core of this whole story. It's about how the rest of Hollywood looked at what Marvel did, and then went on to learn every single wrong lesson from it. Okay, so check this out, because this is the key difference. Marvel played the long game. They took their time, they built up characters, they earned our trust. The rest of the industry, they tried to skip all the hard parts. They just announced these huge multi-film universes right out of the gate. They'd even cram these clumsy backdoor pilots for future team-ups into movies that were already out, just assuming we'd all be interested. They thought they could just build it, and we would come. And the results? Well, they speak for themselves. This is basically the graveyard of cinematic universes that never were. You had Universal's Dark Universe. That was dead on arrival with the first movie. These grand plans for King Arthur and Robin Hood universes, poof, gone after their first films bombed. It turns out you can't just slap a cinematic universe sticker on something and expect it to make $1 billion. And here's the really wild part. While every studio was falling over themselves trying to copy the Avengers model, they were completely ignoring other huge successes happening right in front of them. In 2015, Furious 7 and Jurassic World both made more money than Avengers Age of Ultron. This proved there were other ways to build a blockbuster, but the industry had tunnel vision. All they could see was Marvel. But the impact here, it goes so much deeper than just a bunch of bad copycat movies. The Avengers fundamentally rewired the business itself. It changed the theories behind how movies get made, and more importantly, how we consume them. To really get it, you have to understand this concept called transmedia storytelling. It sounds academic, but the idea is simple. It's where you take one giant story and you spread it out across different platforms. So a piece of the story is in the movie, another piece is in a comic book, another's in a video game. Each piece is unique, but they all add up to one big picture. And the Marvel Cinematic Universe, well, it's the ultimate example of this idea, perfected. But Marvel didn't invent this. A perfect early example is The Matrix. If you wanted the whole story, you couldn't just watch the movies. You had to dive into the animated shorts, you had to read the comics, you had to play the video games. Each one filled in a critical piece of the puzzle. What the MCU did was take that same recipe and scale it up to this massive multi-billion-dollar enterprise. Now, what's so fascinating is that right before the Avengers took over, there was this popular business theory that predicted the exact opposite of what ended up happening. It was called the long tail theory. And it basically argued that the future wasn't in giant hits,
but in selling a little bit of everything, that all the niche stuff, all the little indie films would collectively be worth more than a few giant blockbusters. And then reality came crashing in. That shorthead, the mega-blockbuster, it didn't just survive, it became this monster that basically ate everything else. The crazy success of movies like Avengers Endgame just completely flipped the long-tail theory on its head for movies. It proved, without a doubt, that a few giant hits were more powerful and dominant than ever. So here's what the data really tells us. The tail of niche movies did get longer. There were more of them. But it also got way, way flatter. Each one was making less and less money. All the attention, all the money, all the oxygen in the room was being sucked up by these few giants at the very, very top. And this massive shift, it didn't just change what movies we were watching. It completely changed the very act of how we watch them. The whole experience of a night at the movies had to reinvent itself. To even compete with streaming from your couch, theaters had to go premium. Suddenly it was all about IMAX, 3D, those luxury reclining seats, and even full-on dinner menus with wine and beer. Going to see a blockbuster wasn't just a casual thing anymore. It became a planned event. Pre-sales became critical, and this powerful new force emerged, the fear of missing out, or FOMO, driven by social media spoilers. You had to see it opening weekend or it'd be ruined for you. But not everyone was celebrating this change. You started hearing some critical voices from inside the industry itself. Take actor and writer Simon Pegg, a huge geek himself. He voiced this growing concern that maybe we were being infantilized. His worry was that by only consuming these kinds of stories, comic books, superheroes, we were sort of dumbing down our cultural diet and avoiding more complex, challenging films. Okay, so when we pull all these threads together, what's the final verdict? What is the true, complicated legacy of the Avengers and the world that it built? Well, if you ask me, the biggest casualty, without a doubt, has been the studio programmer. You know, the mid-budget movie, the original story that's made for adults. In this relentless race to make the next billion-dollar blockbuster, those kinds of films have been almost completely squeezed out of the theater. You hear it from legendary directors like Spike Lee, who said that his classic, studio-funded films like Do the Right Thing would have a really tough time getting made today. And you can see the proof right there in the box office numbers. You have these critically acclaimed adult-driven movies like The Last Duel, Nightmare Alley, The Northman. All of them just floundered in theaters. They've become what some people in the business now call filler content, to play in between the big superhero movies. And this has created the exact cycle that we're stuck in now. The legendary director Martin Scorsese put it perfectly. It's a chicken and egg problem. He said, if people are given only one kind of thing and endlessly sold only one kind of thing, of course they're going to want more of that one kind of thing. The studios have basically conditioned us to want more of what they're already selling, creating this self-perpetuating loop. Which really leaves us with this final, really provocative question. Look, the Avengers gave us an entire decade of entertainment on a scale we'd never even imagined. It was incredible. But in the industry's frantic, desperate chase to copy that one success, what was the real cost? Did Hollywood's chase for the next Avengers cost us the chance to see the next Do the Right Thing?